Good evening, everyone. It's Clarissa, your host, and I just want to welcome everyone to another episode of Real Warriors, Real Stories with the Sickle Cell Foundation. And we've got a special guest today, Mr. Carlos. And before I bring him on, I just want to say how much we appreciate hearing these stories from warriors like himself, because we know how important it is to hear these experiences as a community-based organization that helps to educate others on sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait. We know that individuals living with this blood disease experience racism, stigma, bias within and outside the healthcare system. And as a community-based organization, we know that if we continue to push this awareness, we will drive the importance on mitigating these experiences, and therefore knowing how crucial our role is in bringing a more strategic initiative to improve the care and services for warriors like himself. So we welcome Mr. Carlos. How you doing?
Oh, hello. Hi.
Good. So just tell everyone where you're from.
I was originally born in Madison, Florida, but I grew up in Jacksonville. So I'm pretty much, I would say I'm from Jacksonville because that's where I spent most of my lifespan, but I'm actually from Madison, Florida.
Share us a little bit about what you're doing in the community. What's your background? Any gifts, talents, anything like that you'd like to share?
I pretty much regular public citizen, but I do do a little music. I do a little rapping here and there, and I go to the studio, and well, besides that, I'm pretty much dealing with my sickle cell treatments, appointments, doctors. So anything other than that, I'm on.
So you're an artist, a musician. We could say that. That's your art. Yeah. That's your art. Yeah. We love it. I'm a musician, so kudos to that. That's great. Yeah. So I want to get right into it. So do you remember when you were diagnosed as a child, or, when did things start to, you start to learn about your, sickle cell as a child?
When I first was diagnosed with sickle cell, I was actually too young to really understand. I got diagnosed at 3 years old. So I didn't understand any of the factors when I first originally got diagnosed until I got a little older, to be able to comprehend what people were telling me and what they were talking about. But yeah, I got diagnosed at the age of 3. And I found out because I kind of swole up that year, and my mother had to end up taking me to the doctor. And the first few doctors that we went to, they didn't know what was going on. They couldn't diagnose my sickle cell disease. And the third doctor that we went to was a black gentleman. I don't remember his name, but he was able to let my mother know that I did have the sickle cell disease.
Most children, well, some nowadays it's common, but they do newborn screenings now. But if you go back a little years back, I guess they weren't, and a lot of parents were missing it. So right. Like you said, you weren't at the age to really understand. So that's understandable. Thank you for sharing that. So can you share with us any significant experience as a child or even adult where it was just so extreme that, I'm sure every experience was extreme. It's hard.
Yeah, I've had a few episodes of strenuous pain, and it's been a lot of those moments dealing with this disease. As a child, I would think those would be some of my worst moments because I didn't know exactly what I was dealing with at the time. So, but yeah, with sickle cell disease, it does get painful, and depending on which type of sickle cell disease that you have, because you have SS and you also have SC. A lot of the SC patients, they deal with it a little more strenuous than the SS patients. See, I'm an SS patient. But you have SC patients that when they get in pain, they can barely move, they can't walk, they got to go to the hospital, their joints are aching, their bones are aching, so it's a little more strenuous. Now SS, which is what I am, I'm SS, when I'm keeping my health up and, you know, regularly, I guess you could say not exercising, but moving around and everything. But when you're like trying to keep yourself up, you don't deal with as many pain crises. But when they do come, it's just as bad. Yeah, it's just as bad.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to ask you, you know, what you do, and like you mentioned, for some it can possibly trigger when you are a little active, like overexerting yourself sometimes. Does that sound like what you've done before?
Yeah, when you overexert yourself, sometimes your hemoglobin drop. It could be anything like cold weather could probably set in your joints and bones. It just all depends. I mean, it's not like it's on a time frame or anything, because a lot of times it just happens out the blue. So it just all depends on when it happens and what's going on.
Good point.
Are they hydrated? It's a lot of things that could trigger it.
What would you say triggers yours the most? Or do you have different factors all the time? If all the time.
Different factors. Majority of my triggerizations right now are because of low hemoglobin. Like my hemoglobin, it fluctuates, it's up and down. And a lot of the times when I end up in the hospital nowadays, at the age that I'm at now, it'll be because my hemoglobin low or something like that.
Okay. And I've heard that many times, you know, with other warriors too. You know, that's one of the factors that contribute to those triggers, and it could be really, really bad. So how would you say living with it now, currently in your adulthood? How's your experience currently with it?
Right now in my adulthood, I'm more aware. I can say that. See, I'm more aware that's what's going on, and I know when these certain things happen that I will have to take these steps and take this precaution to take care of it. So I'm more of aware with my body right now, and by me going through it for so many years, I'm able to basically know what's going on. Like a lot of the times I have to explain to the doctors the treatment that they would need to give me in order for them to, like, you know, take care of it completely. So, but yeah, as an adult right now, I'm very much more aware.
And you gotta be nowadays. And a lot of people think that they don't have the capabilities to be aware of themselves. And you mentioned it just now. You said you had to tell the doctors. That's one of the stigmas too, that can be a frustrating mental toll on you, because you're not only dealing with the pain, the frustration of, you know, being uncomfortable, but you also have to educate the health providers.
Right. A lot of these new doctors, not saying that they're not good at their practice, but a lot of them don't understand sickle cell disease. Like if it's not a doctor that has some kind of training with that or have dealt with patients with that, a lot of these new doctors, they just don't understand what you're going through. Like they've heard about it probably, but they've never had to actually treat it. So, you know, it's like a lot of doctors, you have to explain to them and let them know what's going on, because nowadays in the world, half of the doctors don't even want to help you if you sickle cell disease. And that's the case with a lot of us. And like you say, it is sad to say, but, you know, sickle cell dominantly runs in the Black community. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these doctors just not understanding because they children don't have to deal with this, or their community don't really understand what's going on. So I'm not knocking what they do, but you have to explain to them and talk to them and let them know.
Thank you for sharing that. That was an awesome point. And before we move forward, I want to mention to the listeners as well, this is why I also push health professionals to get involved with the patients outside of the hospitals and the doctor's offices, especially the nurses and any other professionals on the care team, because the only time, you know, you're seen is when you're in pain or you're hurting. But the real struggles are happening at home and after they leave or before they get there. And Another reason for these other organizations to get involved with community-based organizations like the Sickle Cell Foundation, because we talk to these individuals. They're people outside of these facilities. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. We need to talk about it. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but we need to talk about it. So thank you for bringing that point up. That was great. That was so great. And I want to ask you, how did you connect with the Sickle Cell Foundation?
I've actually known about the Sickle Cell Foundation for a long time, but with the Sickle Cell Foundation down here, my mom became a member, so it was easier for me to find out down here because she was already interacting with the Sickle Cell Foundation. But I've done studies with them. I've been to the hospital, Children's Need Morris Hospital in Jacksonville, and I've helped them do studies and stuff down there. So I've been to a few of the camps and everything. So it's like I've known about them for a minute. I just recently got involved with the Sickle Cell Foundation here. So that's the thing.
That's great. That's great. I heard you mention studies. How was that experience?
Originally they asked me, but I did also volunteer to come in and do it. I enjoyed it. I mean, it just to be able to help other people and, you know, help other people understand what. Yeah, it was enjoyable. It was a fun moment because it was like, I mean, you know, a few laughs and the camp. I loved it. The camp that year that I went. I think I went a few years, but they had the camp, horseback riding and all that. It was enjoyable.
It's so awesome to hear you be involved because, you know, for so many years, sickle cell is like a silent discussion. It's like one of those silent things, and we're trying to get there. And hearing you speak on the awareness and the involvement, what better advocates to have is real warriors who are experiencing it. So I appreciate you again for that. Is there any tips you would give people like you? Let's start there.
If they're dealing with sickle cell disease like I am, and they're just now starting to understand it and find out about it, I would pretty much tell them to keep their body up. It's just try to exercise regularly, you know, because a lot of the times with sickle cell, it's your body needing oxygen. So if you like keep your oxygen levels high, and a lot of the time you won't sickle. So I would pretty much tell them try to eat regularly, exercise. You know, it's a little late for me because I found out a little longer down the line. But yeah, if you're finding out and you're dealing with that situation right now, try to at least keep yourself up, keep your body regulated. Because like if you keep that going, then a lot of times you won't have those sickle pains and you won't go through a lot of the things that you're probably going through. See, it's a little late for my behalf because now I'm on dialysis and I've had to deal with kidney failure and all that. So it's, you know, I'm a little behind schedule, but those things do help. They will help you not be in sickle pain.
Thank you for that. Would you say your dialysis you mentioned and your kidney issues, has it decreased your energy to feel like you can do more?
Most definitely. Like some days I don't have the energy to do more, even though I'm a very active person. Like I'm barely want to sit still, but some days I have to because the treatment from dialysis will drain you and leave you tired and weak some days. So, but you know, if you got the will to keep going, keep pushing and just don't stop.
All right. I want to ask you one last question. And I wanted to ask you, who would you say is on your care team, support team right now?
My girlfriend and my mom are basically my whole support team at the moment. I don't get me wrong, I have my brother, he's pretty good, you know. Basically my family. I basically can't exclude none of them because they all play their part when it's time. I have the doctor, my hematologist. She actually knows me from Gainesville, so she makes sure everything is, you know, she's had experiences with me when she was coming up as an intern. So now she's my doctor here in Tallahassee. So she actually knows my situation. So it's not as hard for me to explain to her what's going on as it would be another doctor.
That's good. That's good that you have a relationship with someone that's known you for that long time. And it just added a question for me. I know I got all these questions for you, but they developed as we're talking, and it's so good. And I want to ask you a very important question that is very important in the community. Would you say mental health struggle is a part of what you have to deal with, or, may have seen someone deal with very hard through the process?
Yeah, people will have some mental issues dealing with this disease because a lot of people feel like they don't have the need to keep going, or some people might want to give up, so I do understand that there are mental struggles. Then when you have to go in there and talk to these doctors and they giving you 50% good news, 50% bad news, and that plays a part on your mind. You have to think about my health and how my life is going to turn out with this, and what am I going to do? And, those do play issues with the mind. I've had to go through some of those struggles myself, but as long as you can keep your mind strong and keep going and keep pushing, I mean, it's not as bad as it sounds. It is bad. And it does take a toll on you, but if you have the will, it's not as bad as it sounds.
Good. That's so good. Good way to close that out. I want to thank you so much, Carlos, for sharing such your great story and experience. I know someone's going to need to hear it in a timely, divine time. And we thank you so much for coming here and sharing with our virtual community. And we hope to see you again. And for my listeners, I thank you so much for tuning in. And I invite you to continue following us on our social platforms. You can visit our website at sicklecellfoundation.org. Again, we appreciate you all. We hope you join us next time, and have a good evening.